So tell me the characteristics of the animal kingdom. Eukaryotic. What else? Multicellular. They move. They're heterotroph. And how do they reproduce?
Sexually
And asexually, correct. I know, right? We're going to learn. How about that? We're covering the first 8 phylums. So this phylum here, Chordata, is not going to be on this test. We'll cover it after. This test is only on the first 8 phylums because all of those phylums lack what? Backbones. They're all invertebrates. So our first unit of animal kingdom is all about invertebrates or animals without a backbone. In order to be able to move from a kingdom to a phylum or a class or an order, you got to think of other characteristics besides unicellular cellular condition, nuclear condition. We're going to look at other characteristics more in detail. And one of the first things that are taken into consideration in the animal kingdom to group organisms is symmetry. Anybody know the types of symmetry? Asymmetrical or no symmetry at all, which is really not symmetry, but some organisms possess no symmetry, so they would be grouped into a phylum based on that. That's good. It's like a rotation because it has a central point. So let's draw like a little circle here. And everything kind of extends out of that central point. And then this is like us. You were going to say it. By what? And yes, mirror is correct. They're mirror images or divided into 2 parts. It's bilateral is the correct word. Symmetry. You could draw a line down the middle of you and your perfect break of a half. Reproduction. Now we've covered reproduction and we're going to go a little bit more in depth and then we're going to keep on going more in depth. We know there's 2 types of reproduction. What are they? Good. Asexual and sexual. And there's actually types of asexual reproduction that invertebrates undergo. The first one is fission or budding. What does that involve? What happens in fission? It's organisms, not mitosis. So we got here, what do we have here? This right here.
That's one organism.
Good. So one organism splits into 2. Good. In regeneration, what happens? So a organism can lose like a limb and then it automatically grows it back. So it regrows body parts. And take a look at fragmentation. What's going on there in that little visual? What's happening?
It's cutting off its half of the body and it's
Like from the part that breaks off it grows.
Or 3 or 4. So parts of the parent break apart and they form a new organism from that part, which is pretty incredible. Wouldn't that be cool if you could cut off your finger and you could make little mini-me's? I'm kidding. Sexual. There's 2 types, or really for now we're going to discuss 2 types. Again, we're going to grow. We're going to do like little growth spurts. So look at these pictures or the names and tell me what one describes over the other. Raise your hand for that answer. External and internal. What's the difference? Everything involves eggs.
Is this inverts?
Yep. Now you kick. Eggs will exit the mother or the female and then get fertilized outside of the female. And in internal, the egg gets fertilized inside. Now, that's not to say sometimes an egg will get fertilized inside and it will still be laid, right? That's not external. It got fertilized inside the mother and then the mother released the egg and then waits for it to develop. We keep it inside until it's fully developed, right? And we give birth. So that's a whole other set.
So, like,
Is called cephalization. What are we describing here? Head. Some organisms have a head. Some do not. As strange as that sounds, it's true. Digestion. You want to think about, we're in the animal kingdom, but they're still really, really simple animals. Remember when I first introduced kingdoms and I said, look at this organism is part of your same kingdom, and they're so different from us. Some organisms can feed and absorb nutrients just with what? Cells. Others have a group of cells working together for this. They're called what?
Tissue.
Tissues. We're multicellular organisms now, yeah. And then words that we haven't really introduced is cavities or tracts, and then all together, organ systems. Okay, good. So some organisms use cells, and we're going to talk about this throughout the whole unit. I'm going to talk about specific cells and specific tissues that aid animals in feeding and digestion. And then we've got some that have this cavity. Look at this picture and look at this word right here, where the mouth is the what? Yeah, which is pretty gross. That's like I eat and I throw up because I have no exit point, right? It's one opening, but it's considered a two-way track because in and out. So it's like a butt head. Yeah, and then we've got one-way tracks, which is food enters where?
Your mouth.
Okay, and which is where? Let's say in this image, here's the mouth, and here's the anus. So how is it? Opposite sides, or through the other side. Good. And then that develops further, where you got some organs. Okay. Technical germ layers, there's a lot to learn about them. I'm going to keep it simple because this unit has a lot. You have to know that this is a characteristic. So I'm only going to touch on each one's location, not function. So you see these charts about the endo, which says what? I didn't realize the answers are there. Inner, middle, M for meso. And remember that word endo?
Can you please send Oscar Gonzalez to student services with his belongings?
Okie dokie.
Thank you.
So endoderm is inner. You're going to have a shout out on YouTube. Meso, M for middle, and ecto would be external. And it's kind of easy to say external layer is going to be your skin layer, right? It's the outside. And then inside is your organs, right? And then in between that, or I mean more deep in that, is your tissues. But you do not have to know that on the test, okay? So I'm going to go like this so that you are aware that the only thing you have to know on the test is what I just said. Okay? You can never say I didn't tell you, okay? Some have no cavity, just the tissues all together. Some had fluid-filled cavities, and some have cavities surrounded by tissue. And we're going to go like this and like that. And all we're going to know for this test is that body cavity is one of the characteristics that helps us identify an invertebrate into what? Into a phylum. Good.